Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast, where in this edition we will be talking about the players that we want to keep at Tottenham Hotspur, the players that we want to sell, the players we want to see go out on loan, and the players we want to see leave the club by ripping up their contract. I've got three very special guests to talk about this subject with. Back with us is the Sun journalist, Dean Snoggins. Dean, welcome back. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks, mate. All good, thank you.
What's the job like at the moment with the season ending?
It's been a pretty hectic weekend, obviously, with the City stuff, and I'm just literally seeing the parade pictures here and wondering how come we were the side that could get the better of them that nobody else could, and we couldn't do it to anybody else. But yeah, wouldn't it be lovely to see us lot on the top of a bus at some point?
Absolutely. I say that every week, Dean. I tell you, that's all I want to see. Tottenham Hotspur lifting trophies down that high road. That is exactly what we deserve as Spurs fans. Also, back with us is the Irish Hotspur, David Harris. Dave, how are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. You know, things are moving. The appointment of Ange looks like we're getting our number one choice goalkeeper as well. So, exciting times ahead.
Dave, tell everyone about your channel before we get started.
Yeah, I run a fan channel called the Irish Hotspur. You can find me over there if you like what I have to say, if you like my input over here.
Also back with us is channel regular Craig Dearman. Craig, you recently celebrated your 50th birthday. How are you? How was it?
I'm all good, thanks. And yeah, thanks for all the messages from everybody. It was really lovely to receive messages from people I don't even know wishing me many happy returns. Some really nice messages. So yeah, I've just turned 50. So what was quite nice is a lot of people said that they were older than me, and I got the impression life begins at 50. So it's not all too bad. And just going back to what Dean said, I think the only bus Spurs fans have been on is a 496 into Romford at the moment. But let's hope there is an open top bus parade coming now. We've got big Ange in, so bring it on, bring it on.
Well, let's start the show by talking about our new boss, Ange Postecoglou to Tottenham Hotspur. We had to wait 71 days for this appointment on a 4-year deal. Dean, let's start the show with you. Let me get your thoughts on the appointment of Ange Postecoglou. You excited?
I am very excited, actually, yeah. Just a sort of a bit of background to it, I really didn't want another one of those European super names, and I can absolutely say that is not because I didn't want them before. I was all for Conte, I was all for Jose, but I just felt like we'd done that. And you know, the Luis Enrique name didn't excite me at all. You know, the sort of very limited links to Zidane that were there quickly, I wasn't excited about whatsoever. I just didn't want to see that same thing again. You know, that this mega ego coach who was felt that they were bigger than Tottenham Hotspur and then wanted to remind everyone of it every single time. That just not what I wanted to do. You know, don't get me wrong, I would have loved a Nagelsmann and would have been fully behind it. But having said that, and that's some of the things I've read the last few weeks. Fortunate enough to have a close mate who's a Celtic fan and another one who's a Rangers fan. And I think it says all you need to know, that the Celtic fans felt very similar to the Tottenham fans at the beginning. Oh, is this the right thing? Who is this guy? And then they read about him and then they saw him and they're so excited. And they know that they can't keep hold of him any longer. And the Rangers fans are dancing because they didn't think they would ever get near the title again as long as he was there. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping we'll see some straight talking. That is what he's promised to the board as well as to the players and to the fans, and then also get us on board with some of this really high intensity, high press, fast football that we've seen from Celtic.
Dean, what do you think will be different at the football club under Postecoglou? Because of course we've gone from Mauricio Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte. You know, many of us thought that we'd be successful under one of those managers. It hasn't happened. What's going to be different this time?
Well, from what I can gather, and I say again, lucky to have some links and within my job to some people who work out there in Scotland as well. And he has apparently this ability to very much make a player feel like $1 million. And I very much got the impression under Conte and definitely under Jose that, you know, there was this close knit circle of players who were in the circle of trust and were, you know, the ones that those managers could get the best out of. And if you weren't quite with them, you were against them and you weren't there. And it seems to me that I think that there'll be a much more come one, come all spirit with Ange. And he seems to be able to foster this, come with me, lads, on this journey. And as long as they give him the tools and the time for that journey, I'm really excited about that. And I think he'll get the dressing room a little bit sort of on edge again, not this either sad or happy. You need, like, you see this again when looking at these pictures of Pep Guardiola and, the relationships he's gone through with the likes of Kyle Walker and Phil Foden and Jack Grealish and those players that he has on edge all the time. We want them back on edge again, and they perform at their best when they're there. So hopefully that.
Dave, are you excited by the appointment of Postecoglou?
I'm very excited by the appointment of Postecoglou. Look, he wasn't my first choice by any means, but we've had to accept the reality. Once you've had Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, and Antonio Conte at your football club, there's only so many other world-class managers that you can turn to. So we're always going to end up, in and around the Postecoglou sort of names. And for me, I think he's one of the most exciting we actually could have got off that list. Everywhere he has been, he's completely turned the club's fortunes around, and he's got everyone to buy into exactly what he wants them to do. And for me, that's the biggest asset. And where we are right now at Tottenham Hotspur, we're back where we were when Pochettino first walked in here. We need that rebuild. We need Pochettino for the first little while. He used the likes of Adebayor and people like that, but very quickly shelved them and brought in Kane and others and sort of, that new era of Tottenham Hotspur. And for me, this is exactly where we're at again. We've had too many players here for too long that just don't want to work hard enough for this badge, and that will no longer be acceptable underneath someone like Ange Postecoglou, because the very core and the basis of everything that he does starts with hard work and dedication. And if you're not on board, you will be gone out of this football club. If you're not prepared to move in and out of possession, you will not see the football pitch. And that's what we need at Tottenham Hotspur. There's too many players that have been here too long that are more trying to hang on to their careers by any means possible rather than actually performing on the football pitch. And they have to be shipped out in order for this club to progress. It's been held back for too long. And it's also going to be very good to get back to playing on the front foot, possession-based attacking football, playing in the opposition's third, playing to our strengths, which is the likes of Kane and Son. But I do stress this can only work as long as we give him the tools to succeed. We have to improve the worst backline we've ever had in our history at Tottenham Hotspur. That has to be decimated, ripped apart, and rebuilt. Also, the goalkeeper as well. Looks like we're about to get that one over the line. So that's a good start. And for me, I just urge for fans to give this guy time because, as much as we want to ridicule the board, this, that, and the other, we are very quick to shout for managers to get out of this football club over the last 3 to 4 years, knowing that, there's players at this club that just aren't good enough. And at some stage, we have to give a manager a chance to build something. You look at Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, Guardiola at City, he had to revamp that squad and everything else. And they were all given time. Arteta at Arsenal. And the proof is in the pudding. You give them time, you will build something and you go on to challenge for something. You look at what we've done under Pochettino. So we have to get back to that. And for me, I think Ange is the right man. I think he'll get fans to buy into him very, very quickly. I'm a huge fan of Ange Postecoglou. As you know, every Irish kid is sort of given Celtic as their second team. So I know a lot about the guy. I'm very, very excited. A lot of fans will be won over very quickly by this guy. So those who are underwhelmed, get prepared to, start praising him because it's definitely going to happen.
What do you say to those Spurs fans, Dave, that are underwhelmed and don't think this is a big enough name for Tottenham Hotspur because he's not managed in one of Europe's top leagues?
Look, I get it, right? First of all, I think I have to say that I do understand that it is underwhelming compared to managers we've had here, Conte, Mourinho, and Pochettino. So if you're comparing them to them names, it is very underwhelming. But what I will say to people out there that, there is a style of football that you can all get behind for too long. For the last 3 to 4 years, it's been very, very defensive. The games have been a long, hard watch. It almost feels like a full-time job in itself, just trying to get through a football game watching Tottenham Hotspur. So that will no longer be there. You'll have the excitement of Tottenham being on the ball, creating chances, so that'll get you to buy time. But the biggest thing for me is you have a Jose Mourinho and a Conte who have only really mentioned their last 22, 23 years under Renick, that sort of history. They've completely ignored all the history that we had before that. The double winning side in the 60s, first team to win English team to bring back a European trophy, this, that, and the other. Ange Postecoglou will mention that side of the history, and he'll change the thoughts and the culture in and around the football club because with Conte and Jose, it was constantly, this is the negative history, this is what you have to try and overcome, this, that, and the other. Whereas Ange Postecoglou will say, this is Tottenham's history. And if you want to be in the same conversations as these legends, go out there on the football pitch and prove it. And for me, once he actually starts mentioning, you know, our good history, that will excite a lot of fans as well, you know, just to have that recognised, not what Jose Mourinho and Conte like to deem us as. So for me, I think there's plenty that they can get behind. Plus, his training methods, I urge people to go and watch Mic'd Up. There's been a lot of talk about Jose Mourinho and Conte, you know, on the training pitch. Are they training these guys, this, that, and the other? Well, there'll be none of that under Ange Postecoglou, because if you watch that Mic'd Up training session, it's unbelievable. And I think the biggest thing is, for me, that I took away from that is that with Jose Mourinho and Conte, they're very quick to criticise the players without sort of any encouragement or anything like that. Whereas Ange Postecoglou, he'll criticise them and then he'll double down and say, the only reason why I'm saying it is because I know you have it in you and I expect more. And a lot of players will buy into that. And I think you'll see a team on the pitch that reflects that, a team that works hard out of possession and wants to go and win games in possession. And that's ultimately what fans will get behind.
Craig, I think it's fair to say that you were one of those doubters about Postecoglou, but like many, you know, when you go away, do your research and seeing what the guy has achieved and what he's done at previous clubs, that is why the excitement is there now amongst a number of Tottenham Hotspur fans.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was 50-50 when he was announced, or just before he was announced. And yeah, I totally done a 180 on it and 100% behind the guy, and I couldn't agree more with what Dave said. I've just got a really good feeling about this manager. You know, I didn't particularly when Jose come in, but I tried to get behind him even though I didn't like his brand of football. Similar to Conte, I was more excited about Conte because of the fact he'd won more recently, and I thought he'd turn us around, but you know, he improved as a first year, second year kind of fell apart. So, and you always knew that argument was going to come and he was going to blow up. So I'm just looking forward to having a guy in now that look, when Pochettino was at our club, he wasn't a big name and we was all a bit underwhelmed by Pochettino, and look what he did. These managers have to start somewhere. The difference with Ange is he's had success everywhere he's been. It's just we haven't heard of it because they're in the so-called lesser leagues, you know, in Australia, Japan, and in Scotland, and obviously the Scottish Premiership's not as strong as the English Premiership, but he still had to get that done, and he did it, and he's won everywhere he's been. Everyone deserves a break. He obviously thinks he's ready. From doing the research, I think he's ready. I think he's going to really, really rip through this team, get rid of who he doesn't want. He doesn't look like he's going to take any crap off anybody. And what really interests me is what Ali said on the podcast last Monday. And if anybody's not watched it, go and watch the one from last Monday discussing Ange Postecoglou, because Ali gave a great insight into our new manager. And he said he does like tapping the almost untapped Asian market and the South Koreans and the Japanese out there, and he pulls real gems out. And there is a guy, and I've forgotten his name. Somebody in the comments will probably know him. He's a young Korean playmaker, left-footed, very fast, very tricky. One of you guys might know his name. I can't remember his name. Yeah. Say again, Dave. Say again.
Kang In Lee, is it?
That's it. That's him. The players like that would be perfect under him, and I'm just really, really interested to see who he's going to bring in. Obviously, the links with David Raya are great. I think he's a really good goalie. It looks like we're going to get that one over the line. I don't think it'll be for 40. It'll probably be nearer 30 because they've already brought in a backup to him or a replacement for him, shall I say. So it looks like that one's going to get done. Very interesting that at the moment, because we've still got no director of football. So be interested to know if Angie's driving these rumours, these transfer requests like the Madisons and all that. So I'm sure they're working on it. It looks like, even though he doesn't start till 1st of July, he's heavily involved anyway. So yeah, I'm really excited by this appointment now.
Dean, before we talk about what we're here for, have you got any latest information on James Maddison, David Raya, and a director of football at Tottenham?
Well, Craig's absolutely bang on with Raya. I think it's, you know, he wants to come to Tottenham. The wages and all of that sort of stuff is not an issue. There's probably a little bit of stuff to be sorted with Lloris here as well. You've got to get your ducks in a row as a club before you start bringing in the next one. There's no way it'll be 40 million, but it'll be somewhere between that 25 and 35 mark, I would imagine, with different add-ons and whatever. The other ones you said, so we've got the Kane one is still the main issue, isn't it? I think everyone's fairly confident he's going to stay. Our information very much is that he doesn't really want to go abroad, and it would take some mega offer for him to go anywhere. Your viewers may or may not have noticed we've not really gone there as a newspaper and as a website with most of these Kane rumours, because we very much believe, and we know that the people close to him are saying the same things. If Tottenham are willing to accept an exceptional offer from someone like Manchester United or Man City, then there would be a conversation. But Levy's just not going to entertain that unless that offer is, as I said, exceptional. So I think that one will sort of do what normally happens and rumble till the beginning of the season with Kane. And because he's such an unbelievable professional, and we know he loves the club so much, we'll probably get as good a Kane this year as we got last year. So that's all fine. And what was the other one you asked, Chris? Sorry.
Director of football.
Director of football. I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that Postecoglou was already working very closely with Munn, and this July the 1st thing you should absolutely ignore. Postecoglou is full-time working and getting things ready and viewing things and ready to go. He's not a part-time guy. He's full on and full in already.
Dane, but do you think? Sorry, Chris. Dane, do you think there'll be part of Postecoglou that will think, I can get Harry Kane to sign a new deal over the next year? He's going to trust in him.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, and there's a split here, isn't there? I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans who think, well, let's get 100 million quid for Harry Kane whilst we can still get 100 million quid for him. But we all saw what happened with the Gareth Bale money and how that can go not quite as right as we want it. And in my opinion, just very, very personal one, Kane to me is worth more than 100 million for one more season, because if he does take you back into the Champions League or he does win you a trophy, then it's worth every penny. And so therefore, and to go back to your point, if we did do that, then why wouldn't Kane stay? It's okay, we're back in it. Let's say the best case scenario, right? Let's take the best case scenario. We win the League Cup or the FA Cup and we finish 4th, and it's all progressing forwards and it's all going lovely. Kane will go, well, I've got my trophy. I've taken my club there. I'll break the record. I'll sign for another 2 years. So, yeah, I think that Postecoglou will think he can do that. And I don't think he would have signed as manager if he didn't think that he had the tools to do those things with or without Harry Kane.
I love it, Dean. 18 minutes in, you're talking about winning trophies already. Love it. Well, what we're here for, we're going to go through the whole squad, every single player. Do we want to keep them? Do we want to sell them? Do we want to loan them out? Or do we want to rip up their contract? Dean, let's start with you. We're going to talk about our club captain, Hugo Lloris. Of course, he signed for Spurs back in 2012. He's been with us for 11 seasons, made a total of 447 appearances in all competitions, 361 in the Premier League, conceding 398 goals in the process, keeping 127 clean sheets, 205 wins in the Premier League, 5 penalties saved, errors leading to goals, 24. What would you like to do with Hugo Lloris?
I would have liked to have got rid of him before his last contract. So I think that this is that's a very easy one for me. He's gone. He has to go.
Do you think that he will be going back to France?
I think he deserves for his career to have a really nice big money last move, and whether that is he sees as France or Saudi Arabia or one of the secondary clubs in La Liga, because it won't be Barcelona or Real Madrid. But yeah, I'd like to, I'm very grateful to him for how much he's put into the club over the years. But for me, he's one of a group of problems that we've had for a while, and it's time to go.
So is that selling or ripping up the contract?
Oh, if Raya's in, I'd rip up the contract.
What about you, Dave?
Look, for me, I think Hugo Lloris, I think we have to look to sell him. Rip up his contract. I don't think you're going to get much in terms of resale value on the guy. He's 36. He's on 100k a week. We could use that wages and put them elsewhere. And for me, he's a goalkeeper that's in decline. He, in a lot of high-profile games last year, he made a lot of high-profile errors. And distribution-wise, he holds us back as well. That's his weakest area. But also last season, a lot of crosses, corner, set pieces, a lot of them were swung in around our 6-yard box because they knew Hugo didn't want to come off his line and control that either. So for me, I don't see what he adds to Tottenham anymore. Thanks for the service. He's had a good run at it for the last 10 to 11 years, but it's time to rip up the contract and move on. He quit on us against Newcastle for the rest of the season. I don't buy into the injury talk. So for me, there's no room for sentimentality in football. So you've got to cut his contract and move on.
You know what, Dave? I completely agree. And I think it's such a shame that his last appearance in a Spurs shirt, if he does go, would have been that, at half-time, 5-0 down at Newcastle and not won a trophy in all those years that he's been at Spurs. I think it's a great shame. Craig, what about you?
I got a lot of good memories about Hugo. My youngest is a goalie and his nickname's Hugo because of Hugo Lloris. So it's kind of tinged with a bit of sadness that there's been a bit of a decline there. But ultimately, we have to move on. For me, I'd put the feelers out to see if there's any interest in the market. I personally think we could still get a decent bit of money for him. But if towards the end of the window we can't, then I think you just come to an agreement with him, give him a little golden handshake and send him on his way with our thanks. But it is time for Hugo to move on. But he's been a brilliant servant to the club, and I hope they give him a testimonial.
I think it's a dead cert that he's going because he said the other day that it's the end of an era. So I think that he's definitely going this summer. Dean, let's come around to you again. Next player, Oliver Skipp, 22 years old, worked now or been involved with the first team for 4 seasons. He had a successful loan spell at Norwich City during 2020-2021 season, named in the PFA Team of the Year. He made 23 Premier League appearances this season, 1 goal. Keep, sell, loan?
I think just about keep, but only to me as a squad player. I mean, the thing that would make a Skipp very difficult for me this year is that we haven't got European football. And so, therefore, the squad can be slightly leaner than it has been before. And I think he would, therefore, be right on the fringe of that. I'd love Skippy to be the player that we all want him to be, but I just don't think he's good enough. There's some comparisons there for me for Harry Winks of 2 years ago. He tries really hard, but we saw him at the end of the season in the games, and it's just not quite there. So it's either he's one of the fringes of the squad or it's a loan for me.
Are you surprised then, Dean, that previous Spurs head coaches have said that he will be the future captain of Spurs?
I am surprised. I've got to be honest, and I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen enough, and maybe he's. I think we've got a lot of these, by the way. I think he's one of these probably brilliant trainers who doesn't quite turn up on the day. And he probably does everything right in his lifestyle, in his training methods and everything. And we haven't quite seen it yet. I also, we know some of the England under-21 managers have spoken incredibly highly of him. But it's an all-action thing, the Premier League, and I'm just not quite sure he's got it at both ends of the pitch.
What about you, Dave, on Oliver Skipp?
Look, for me, I don't think you can question his attitude, his work rate, his commitment to the cause. However, he just lacks completely on the ball. He gets dispossessed way too much. He's not consistent in the passing room either. And for me, I think his best attribute is probably just sitting there, being one of them breaking up play. But when you look around at others who specialise in that, Sofran Amrabat, Declan Rice, people like that, he is nowhere near that level and does it nowhere near consistently. He's 22 years of age. For me, when I look at it, you've got Bentancur coming back, you've got Basumi, you've got Højbjerg. We're rumoured Rio Hatate today, so it looks like we're probably in the market for maybe one more. Pape Matar there, who I think his ceiling is actually higher than Ollie Skipp's in terms of progression. So when I look at Skipp, it's a hard one, lads, because for me, it's sort of, he's 22, bordering on 23. Once you sort of reach 23, you sort of develop into the player you're really going to be. You're not really going to develop into anything special outside of that. So I think we would actually benefit benefit from loaning him out this season to a Premier League team lower down, getting a full season under his belt and really judging it for there. If not, keep him around maybe for another year as a squad player. But if he doesn't progress in other areas of the game, he is going to be left behind at Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, I think this year is pivotal that he really grabs the bull by the horn. And look, I feel sorry for him because I've no doubt that injury derailed his progression. It hampered his progression. You know, it was at a time where there was room to get into that midfield and really make an imprint and nail down a spot. But then that injury happened. We bought in players, and that's no longer there. And when I look at it, I'm just not sure he's going to be good enough for Tottenham Hotspur, which is sad. And just quickly, I'm not surprised that, you know, other managers said he's going to be future captain of Tottenham Hotspur because, you know, when you're comparing him to Dier, Sánchez, Davies, and people like that, you know, I'm not surprised.
What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, you know, but leaving the nostalgia and like the sentimentality aside, I think we've got better players in the squad as it is than Skippy. It just for me is, would you keep him as a squad player? Because for me, that's what he would be at the moment. Personally, I think if you're going to push me for an answer, and you've got to remember the system that Ange is going to be playing, is he going to fit into that? You know, there's only kind of one holding midfielder. So I would personally say loan him to a Luton or something like that. See if we can get a loan to Luton for a season. You watch us draw him in the Friday night football first game of the season there, and he has an absolute blinder.
That is definitely the Gooners plot. That is. Come on.
Yeah, it probably is, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
First day of the season. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. It could be, couldn't it? So yeah, for me, don't give up on him just yet. But I think he needs to go away and have a full season of playing. Because look, when he was at Norwich, I know it was Championship, but he was fantastic. He was their player of the season. So I still think there's a player in there. I think we can't give up on him just yet, but I think he needs another loan. And at 23, you know, you could say it's a little bit, you know, players usually go out pre that age, but I think his situation, I think he could do with another loan.
Well, it's the under-21s now, but when Oliver Skipp went in the development squad, it was the under-23s. And I tell you what, he was 17. Some of the guys were 6 years older than him, and he was the best player on the pitch week in, week out. It's unbelievable. I think there's so much more to come from Oliver Skipp. So for me personally, I would keep him. Dean, let's come to you. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, 27 years old. He's had 3 seasons now at Spurs, 109 Premier League appearances for the club, 8 goals. He has only missed 5 Premier League games in 3 seasons.
He's the most difficult one for me. Out of all of this, I think he would be the most difficult one. Because I think if you're looking at it from a pure refresh squad perspective, you sell him, you can get money for him. There are lots of European managers, including one Pep Guardiola, who has always been a huge fan of Højbjerg, and I'm not sure he'd go to City this time, but there'd be plenty of people who would quite fancy him. My issue is that obviously our good performances were few and far between in the season just gone, but the ones where we played very well, he was excellent. And in those big games against City, where the really good performances we had, the 45, 50 minutes against Liverpool, where we were really, really good, he was outstanding. The goal against Chelsea, was it, I think, as well, the performance against Chelsea, were just really, really good. So I can't quite work him out. I can't quite work out why a player can be that good, an international captain, and demand and boss the pitch half the time, and then just drop off to the levels that we were seeing towards the end. And, you know, I think pre-World Cup, he was absolutely fantastic. But I think looking at it now, it's time to push the refresh button and say he's worth money, and we have other players in that position, and we could get other players. So I think I'd sell him.
What about you, Dave?
I'd actually keep Højbjerg, to be honest with you. I think he adds that bit of steel that we need in that midfield. That's why we brought him in here in the first place, to be that steel behind Ndombele, Ali, Lo Celso, people like that, because none of them wanted to do that defensive work. And since he's come into the team, I do see a progression with him on the football. I take the point that, you know, this season, towards the end of the season, it's been a massive drop-off in performances. But when I look at someone like Højbjerg, that was also there with Harry Winks when he was partnering him. Same with Oliver Skipp. If midfield is all about partnership, especially as a two, the way Conte played it, and you have to have that partnership in the midfield. And you just didn't have it with Skipp or Harry Winks, but it was there with Bentancur. That's where we got the best out of this guy. So for me, I think you keep him around. I think he's a leader on the pitch as well. I remember at the Southampton game, whether people listen to him or not, but in the tunnel coming out after half time, he was there talking about keeping it tight, this, that, and the other. Now, unfortunately, we conceded like a minute later, but, you know, he is a leader on the pitch. And for me, I think the fact that he embodies hard work, you know, in and out of possession, and just the fact that he provides a bit of steel, I think Ange Postecoglou will definitely keep him around for at least one more season for sure.
Craig, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg?
Yeah, I can see why Dean was struggling with this one, but ultimately I would prefer that he stayed around. I think he's one of the few players in the squad that knows the art of shithousery, and I think he can become better at that. So for me, I think Ange will like him. I think it'll be his type of player, very hard-working, rallying the troops. Yes, he's had some poor performances, but every single one of our players has had poor performances last year. I just think in his position, you've got to be everywhere. And as soon as he drops off a little bit, it's very noticeable, especially when teams play through us. But that might not be necessarily Højbjerg. It might just be the system's not working. So for me, you've got to keep Højbjerg around. I think Ange will like him, and I think we'll get another decent season out of him, hopefully. And as I say, this is a new manager, new style of play. Everything is going to take a couple of months to bed in, and these players, you can't be too quick to judge. We all know the ones we want to get rid of and see gone that just aren't good enough. But I think Højbjerg is not one of them. For me, I think we keep him around.
And
yeah, I think. Go on, Dave.
Sorry, I was just going to say, just quickly, you have to take into account that Bentancur won't be back till October, November time as well. So
I was going to say the same thing, Dave. I think that's a really important part of it, because even if you say you've got Bissouma or Højbjerg as that pivot in that system, without Bentancur back as well, you are a bit light. So I think that's spot on.
I think I'm kind of on the fence with Højbjerg, but for that reason, keep him for next season. Dean, let's come back to you. Davinson Sánchez, 27 years old. We signed him for £42 million back in 2017. He's been with us for 6 seasons, only 18 appearances in the Premier League this season, booed by our fans this season. Errors leading to Premier League goals in his career, only 2.
That can't be right, can it? Maybe that's directly leading to goals, perhaps. But I'll keep this nice and short. I think I said this on your show last time, Chris. I genuinely think he's the worst £40 million that Tottenham Hotspur have ever spent on any player at any time. And if anyone will take him, then go. But in that scenario, just rip up his contract.
Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, for me, I failed to see what he offers to Tottenham Hotspur. I think he's the worst defender in our history. He won't be able to play the Ange system. He cannot play a high line. We've seen plenty of times, even when he's sitting on the edge of his own box, any ball played in behind him, he doesn't have a clue where it is. But also, technically, he's not suited to Ange ball. You know, he takes him 2-3 touches to get the ball under control. The weight of his passes is often underhit or overhit. For me, he's completely erratic. He makes other people nervous around him as well. He's absolutely error-ridden. And for me, the guy is on, I made some notes here earlier on, Chris, and the guy is on 65k a week just to be a backup around here. For me, ship him gone. Get Alfie Dorrington up here. He'll relish at least having that spot. A lot less wages as well, and frees us up wages to put towards other centre-backs that are good enough for Tottenham Hotspur. This guy has been a backup under every single manager, Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Conte, and Nuno. So for me, they all think he's not good enough. The fans know he's not good enough. When the fans are booing him, it's time to go. Rip it up.
A good point. That's a good point on the appearances, Dave, because the last 3 seasons, 2021 season, 18 appearances in the Premier League, 21-22 season, only 23, and then this season, 18. Craig, can a player be happy at a football club only playing half the matches in the league?
Unless they're really mercenary and just there to pick the money up, then yeah, they probably could be happy. But I don't get that with Davinson Sánchez. I think he really does want to play. It's just he's not good enough for Tottenham. As I said on here before, I thought it was disgusting our own fans were booing him. And to be honest, if I was Davinson Sánchez, I'd want to move on anyway. I think we could get a buyer for him. I think there are suitors out there that would come in with a bid, but I think Levy would have to lower his expectations. You're not going to get anywhere near what we paid for him. And Dean's spot on. Looking back now, it does seem a monumental waste of money, sadly, because he did look good in that first season. But, he's been there a while now and he hasn't pushed on. He hasn't really made any manager want to play him or force their hand to play him other than when we've had injuries.
And the other players
almost like a last resort.
The ball as well. They're frightened to pass to him.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly. And under Ange, the two centre-backs are pivotal. They need to be able to play football and need to be comfortable on the ball. And he's not going to be. So for me, I think you try and sell him and take what you can for him.
And his contract is up at the end of next season as well. It's up in 2024. So, for me, it's decision time on this guy. Just rip up his contract and get him gone. He offers nothing.
Yeah, I think he definitely needs to be sold. And I'd be really surprised as a Spurs fan if Davinson Sánchez is a Spurs player at the start of next season. I really will. And be very disappointed as well. Dean, let's come to you. Heung-min Son will be 31 next month. 8 seasons with Tottenham. 103 Premier League goals in 268 games. 10 Premier League goals this season. 23 the season before. Of course, won the Golden Boot alongside Mohamed Salah. Heung-min Son for you?
And full well with me, Chris, this is where I'm going to be the most controversial. Son for me goes. He's not scored a winner for a year. It is literally a year since he last scored a winning goal in a match. He's been carried by Harry Kane, and we can still get some money for him with 2 years left. The thing about Ange is the way he plays: press. You watch Son in some of these games in the second half of this season, and he's being carried by that front three. He does not press the ball well enough. He's not enough involved without the ball. And when we're beating teams and we're always looking good, he's fantastic. Scores the third and fourth in a 4-1, fantastic. Polishes games off, no problem. Whenever we needed a goal to be scored to equalise a game, to win a game, it's Kane. And it was Bentancur before Bentancur got injured. And Bentancur scored more winners this season, 3 more winners, in fact, than Heung-min Son did. And so for me, it's cash in while you still can.
Do you not think, though, Dean, that he will thrive under Postecoglou's system?
I hope that's the case, because he won't go. That's me saying so. He won't go. He's too much of a huge commercial entity for the club to actually entertain selling him. And and we all love seeing those Korean fans around the stadium. They're absolutely fantastic. And the atmosphere when he gets the ball, the excitement when he gets the ball, it's great. It's great. But I hope he does thrive in that system, in the 4-3-3 with the high press. The problem for me is he's just not very good at pressing, and you'll have seen Kulusevski and Kane go to the ball. And often when we were playing well under Conte, when you saw Højbjerg waving people up with him to get them up to the press, and Bentancur and Højbjerg doing it, it was Son who couldn't press. It was Son who got beaten with the 1-2 and the press. And he's going to have to do some convincing to Ange without the ball to convince him that he's part of that front three.
I think he would be the first to admit that he's had a poor season and he should have delivered more. But I'm really surprised by your answer, Dean. For me, definitely keep Heung-min Son all day long. I think he's got so much to deliver. And the amazing goals that he has scored for us over the years, it's been incredible. Dave, who are you agreeing with, me or Dean?
Well, look, if I want to get into Korea on holiday anytime soon, I won't be agreeing with Dean anyway, that's for sure. Look, for me, I actually agree with Dean when it comes to the pressing side of things. If you go back and look at a lot of our games, a lot of the other teams' outs was down our left-hand side because it was usually Son and Perisic or Son and Davies, and that press down that side was non-existent. Dean is right. Højbjerg was screaming for people to get up with them at times, and that is an area that Son does lack. However, what I will say is, you're under Ange Postecoglou, you're going to get Son back to what he's best at, which is around the opposition's box, not on the halfway line, picking up the ball with his back to goal. You're going to get him on the ball, facing goal in dangerous positions. And I do think you will see the very best of Sonny again. So for me, I do keep him around here, but he will have to up his work rate off the ball, because Ange will not accept that. He will haul him off early if that's the case.
Can you imagine our team, Dave? I know it's going to happen one day, but can you imagine the team without Heung-min Son and Harry Kane?
No, I don't want to either, because I fear if they haven't been here the last 3-4 years, God knows where Tottenham Hotspur could have really ended up spiraling too. So, for me, but look, it's coming into crucial time though, lads, where we have to start looking beyond them eventually. It is coming to that time. Son's 31, Kane's 29 with a year left on his contract. But before we can even consider replacing them, we have to make sure we stop shifting goals across that back line, because if we don't, you're then in a position where you're big, about 60% of your goals is taken out the team. You're also conceding them, and then you're conceding more goals than what you score, and that's a recipe for disaster. That you're no better than a Leeds than an Everton at that point. So for me, it's all about getting that back line, that goalkeeper, and that midfield, and a stable base that's strong enough to keep us in games and in the Premier League before you can start replacing the likes of a Kane and Son. But it is coming to that time. It has to happen soon.
What about you, Craig? Heung-min Son?
Keep, 100% keep. I can't believe what I'm hearing from Dean. I just cannot believe. No.
Don't get me wrong. I want him to be that player again, and I want him to be, that enthusiastic Sonny again. And I know that a lot of the fans and the viewers are gonna feel like this is like a disrespectful thing to what he's done before. It's not that at all. I absolutely love the guy to bits, but we're talking about a squad that hasn't been refreshed. And as Dave just said there's a part of that. Sorry, Craig, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. Honestly, it's all about opinion, but I do understand what you were saying. He did drop off last season, but he's come out himself and said he dropped off last season. I think he knows that. I think everybody knows that. But as Dave said, I think you're going to see a different Sonny. I think you're going to see almost the old Sonny back under Ange, because he is going to be going forward a lot more. He's going to be doing the job he's paid to do, essentially, which sounds daft, but that is what he's going to be paid to do. You'll probably see someone as one of the more advanced, if not most advanced players next season. I think he's going to be getting him up the pitch a lot more and not coming back to his own goal. There obviously will be an element of defending because that is the system, but he's going to be back. I'm confident he's going to be back to one of the player that we all knew a few years ago. But the thing is, as Dean said, he's not going to be allowed to go anyway. Even if I know we're talking hypothetically here, but the club, Daniel Levy, is never going to get rid of Son. The amount of money he brings into the club, it's unbelievable. So he's almost as important as Harry Kane in that respect. So yeah. Anyway, for me, keep Heung-min Son all day long.
I think the other thing to note as well is that we've got to factor in some of the things in the last 12 months for Son, which is we had the national service, which he did. We had a couple of really niggly injuries, which with a player with that sort of explosive pace have affected him. And Conte played Kane in a very different way in the last year, which actually was detrimental to Son, because you remember the year before it was all the assists from one to the other. That changed a little bit. And then also he was the poster boy for their World Cup. Absolutely. And the pressure that comes with, and and then to get the cheekbone injury in the Champions League and before that, and all of that pressure that he carried. So cutting him some slack with that, he's had a tough year, but yeah, sorry, I'm not as big a fan as him as 99% of the fan base.
Yeah, I think that injury, the eye injury at Marseille away, certainly affected his season. Dean, Richarlison, he has been at the club now for a year. He's about to play under the fourth manager, Conte, Stellini, Mason, and now Postecoglou. 27 Premier League appearances this season, only the one goal. 2 Champions League goals, which were both against Marseille at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's been a difficult season for him. Would you like to keep him, sell him, loan, or rip up the contract?
I feel like we've got to see one more year. We've got to see one more year of him. He plays number 9 for Brazil. We saw some of him in that World Cup. He's another one, I think, where the World Cup season really got on top of him. And, the one thing I didn't like with some of our players was this impression that the World Cup was there and I'm going to stop playing here because I've got this coming. There was a few of those, let's be honest. But I think he's been really unlucky with injury, just at the point where actually I think Conte dropped Son for a game or two and Richarlison came in, before the Richarlison injury came and the goal in the Champions League came. And the other thing I know about Richarlison is the stadium lifts when he comes off the bench. And there's a kind of atmosphere change where, because he presses very, very hard, he's very, very front foot. You know, let's be honest, he puts the fright of life up a lot of defenders when they've got the ball, because he comes charging at them, and he could equally get a sent off as he could win the ball back. But I just think we've got to give him another year. He's had a horrifically bad 12 months from a goal scoring point of view. But then you add in the injuries, the World Cup, and as you quite rightly say, the changes of managers. I'd love to see him get a run in the team. I'm not quite sure where and when that comes, but he's a good player. And if he goes elsewhere, he'll be one of the ones we always go, oh yeah, we had him. And when he goes and scores goals elsewhere.
How does he get that run in the team, though, Dean?
Well, the Kane question mark always comes up, and you know, again, we know we sort of think we know what system Ange will play, and with the three forwards. But where does Kane fit as a deeper line forward in that, with two like Richarlison and another forward, Son or Kulusevski, really bombing on as part of those other two, or does Richarlison play as one of the wide forwards? I think he had that run in the team where he played as one of the wide forwards, and we really started to click. And we were quite unlucky at that stage with the injuries that happened around that period when it was going quite well under Conte pre-World Cup. So it's difficult when you're a striker and you're used to scoring goals and you want to play in a team. How long have we been going on about second fiddle for Kane? You know, it's been 9-10 seasons of players. Have we got a backup? And now we have got a backup. But the question mark is, can he score goals when he comes in and out? So I just think we should give him another year. It's too early to cash in on or lose money potentially on a player like Richarlison.
Yeah, for me personally, I completely agree, Dean. I think that there's so much more to come from Richarlison, and there is that excitement from the crowd. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I think he's definitely worth keeping around another year at least. Anyway, I think he's one of the players that I actually think will thrive under Ange Postecoglou, and there's going to be plenty of game time there for him. Because, you know, with Ange Postecoglou, I know with Kyogo at Celtic, he plays that sort of pressing forward. And that's what Richarlison will be for Ange Postecoglou. You can get Kane to drop back as maybe a cam or something like that and adjust that midfield system just a little and get Kane to start feeding him the balls. But ideally, you know, Richarlison needs someone like a Kane behind him. You know, Richarlison, for me, he's no good at the build-up play. He's no good out wide. He's one of them. Just put the ball in the box and let him go and attack it. So for me, I think he needs someone like that. But the reason why I said it's going to be plenty of game time as well is because, you know, Ange Postecoglou will use them substitutions that are available to him. That's how his team continues on that relentlessness for 90 minutes, because in around 65, 70 minutes, if players are tiring, he'll haul them straight off and bring on the next batch just to go running around again, pressing and doing the exact same thing. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities there for Richarlison. I just hope he takes them. I hope that he, you know, this season hasn't drained all the confidence out of me, still in a good frame of mind, and that when the opportunities come around next season, he has to take them. Because, look, let's get real. At Tottenham Hotspur, this is the biggest problem. We're signing players, or players are coming in, and they're not taking opportunities afforded to them. And then they're sitting there moaning, going, well, I need 7, 8, 9, 10 games to get up and running. It's like, yeah, okay, in the Belgian league you might get away with that, but not in the Premier League. So take your minutes. So it's up to Richarlison. He's got one more season for me. I do think Postecoglou will utilise him in the system, and it's going to be plenty of minutes. But it's up to him what he does with it this year.
So keep for you, Dave.
Yeah, keep for one more season.
What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I think we got to keep him. See how he does this season. Again, come back to a new manager, new style of play. Didn't see the best of him last year. As you said, niggling injuries. World Cup. I think the World Cup played more of a part than anybody gives credit for. I think for a lot of players, all right, City obviously went on an unbelievable run in the second half of the season, but, you know, a lot of teams suffered at the hands of the World Cup. So it'd be nice to get back to normality next season. I think we got to keep him. And wherever Ange sees him as fitting in, I think he's going to be a much more important player next season. Let's face it. He hasn't got to improve on his goals that much. You know, he's only got to get 2, and he's already done better than last season. So I'm sure he'll be better.
Dean, Harry Kane next. He will be 30 years old on the 29th of July. Of course, our leading goal scorer for England, 30 goals this season in 38 Premier League appearances. Are you going to be controversial on this one as well?
Absolutely not. No, you can't replace a Kane. I actually think that other than most Spurs fans who watch him week in, week out and go to games, that I actually think he's still underrated. I think he's just gone completely under the radar again this season. The number of goals he scored because of Haaland. You know, it's just and again, I know again I was controversial with Son, but you look at Kane, 13 Premier League winners this season. His goals were that many points to us. Without him, we were Chelsea. And, you know, with him, Chelsea would have been way up the season. I know that's a horrible thought, but, you know, they'd have been way up the table again. He scores big goals in big games, and he scores winners, and he sets up winners. And, you know, and I've seen some fans even have the nerve to say that he doesn't press very well and doesn't close down very well. And it's a nonsense. When we're winning 3-0, he backs off and manages himself, which is good, which he's done so much better as he's got older. And the ankle injuries, touch wood, are a thing of the past because he manages his body in such a fantastic way. So no, silly question. Move on.
Dean, do you think Harry Kane will end up signing a new contract for Spurs, or do you think he will leave on a free next summer?
I think the ball's in Tottenham's court for that, i.e. giving players and a performance around him to think that I've got the potential to not only break the goal-scoring records here, the Premier League goal-scoring records here, but also to get my trophy and go down as a one-club legend. And I think that if you ask Harry Kane very honestly, that's what he wants. He wants to win trophies for Tottenham and be a one-club legend. But that has to be both ways, doesn't it? It can't just be one player wanting to do that. You know, it has to come from the other end as well. My gut is that he'll stay, but maybe that's just the badge coming through there.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. Winning a trophy at Spurs would mean so much more than winning, say, 5 trophies at another club that he doesn't love, because of course he loves Spurs. Dave, Harry Kane, would you sell him? Would you, or would you like to keep him?
No, I'm not even going to disrespect the guy by trying to justify to keep him, to be honest with you. We all know the reasons why we should keep him. If you don't have him, you're going to end up a mid-table Premier League team or below. So for me, that you know, I think he amassed us 27 points last season with all these winners and equalisers and stuff like that. You take that from where we are this season, you're in big trouble. So for me, that alone is the reason why we should keep him. Slight concern, though, just hear me out quickly. You know, under Pochettino got him to press a lot, this, that, and the other. And Kane's injury, ankle problems were absolutely very prevalent because he had to do it week in, week out, sometimes twice a week. Can Kane's bodies go back through that demand? Because since we switched to a Jose and a Conte and stuff like that and asked a different question at Kane, he's had 3 seasons injury-free from that ankle. And look, that's no doubt too, because I know he has a personal guy that he flies in to help with his ankles and with his body and stuff like that. That's another part of why he hasn't got injured. But I'm just worried that if we do go back to getting him to press and all this, you know, will them ankle injuries come back? So maybe something to think about. But Kane fits into any style, any system. And even if Ange doesn't want him to press, Ange Postecoglou has played systems where he almost plays a false 9 as that main striker. And Harry Kane can definitely fit in there and play that.
Keep or sell, Craig? Harry Kane.
Keep. You know, there's nothing else I can say on it. Absolutely, 100% keep. He's the most important player we've got. He's arguably the best player to have ever played for Tottenham Hotspur, certainly in my lifetime. And you know how much I love Gareth Bale. I was gutted when Bale left. But if you look at Kane, I think there's a lot to be said that you only appreciate something or someone fully when they actually aren't there anymore. And I think that will be the case with Harry Kane, whether it's this season, next season, or when he stays with us for another 7-8 years and hangs up his boots. But I truly believe he will go down as the club's greatest ever player. And I think we've got to keep him, try and keep him at all costs. And hopefully Daniel Levy's finally woken up and realised what he's been saying all these years. Look, if I see us going in the right direction, then I'm happy to stay. Well, next year, if he stays, the ball's back in his court and it's up for him to decide. So they've got to get things right this season to keep this man around, or else I don't think any of us would begrudge him a move. But hopefully he can stay. He'll want to stay. And he will be that one club man, and he'll finally lift a trophy with Spurs. But 100% keep.
Yeah, completely agree. 100% keep. Dean, Emerson Royal, he's been with us now for 2 seasons, 57 Premier League appearances for the club, 3 goals, 24 years old. It's very fair to say he's had a lot of difficulties at Tottenham, but he's turned it around, and recent performances have been fairly decent.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, a really interesting one, because if we were talking, 3-5-2 again, I just think, I actually think the fullback positions are Ange's biggest issue, because we've bought wing backs, and a couple of whom really struggle defensively. We've got another couple of younger wing backs who we've bought, Jed Spence and Destiny Udogie, and we don't really know how they're going to get on in the Premier League. But Emerson Royal was a real positive in the second half of the season for me. I mean, actually, dare I say, there were quite a few games where you thought we really missed him. And I couldn't have said that 12 months ago. I actually think if it's going to be 4 at the back, which it probably is, and you can cut out the mistakes, which, let's be fair to him again, he hasn't had in very recent games. I think he's actually one who'll be kept.
What about you, Dave? Emerson Royal?
Yeah, for me, I don't see any reason to ship him on. We've got enough business to do in that back line. I think the guy could easily play right-sided centre-back or right-back. I think he offers us a bit of versatility. And, he's not one of these players that get criticised, by the fans or pundits. He's had that plenty of times at Spurs. Spurs fans were singing songs about him. But what I like about the guy? He went and spent his own money to improve himself and his mentality. And that's been reflected on the football pitch in terms of, him especially on the ball. And that was the fans' biggest problem. And for me, when you've got a player that's willing to do that, it shows he cares. It shows he wants to win and wants to be successful. And for me, keep him around.
I'll tell you what, the interaction between him and the fans is absolutely unreal as well. He absolutely adores spending time with the fans, and unbelievable. And Craig, I tell you what, if you listen to this show on a regular basis, either on YouTube or an audio platform, you will know that Craig has absolutely battered Emerson Royal on a number of occasions, and I never in a million years thought that he would be sitting next to a signed Emerson Royal photo. So, Craig, I hope you're going to say keep.
Of course I'm going to say keep. Look, the man's on the desk here. I won't say who got me this lovely birthday present, this signed, gold-plated Emerson Royal picture. I won't tell you who it is. I'm sure you can work it out. But you've got to keep this guy around. You've got to keep this guy around. I was his biggest critic, like a lot of you. I was his biggest critic. But for me, he's turned it around 100%. He loves the club. But that's not enough, don't get me wrong. But he loves the club. He wants to be here. And he's been playing really well. And I was his biggest critic. So for me, you've got to keep Emerson Royal around, because I think this system may well suit him. I think he could play on the right side centre-back, even in a 2, personally. Yeah. But he improved right wing-back, but he's more of a right-back, let's be honest. Yeah. So you've got to keep the guy around. You've got to keep him around. I've got the picture now and everything. Anyway, I've got to keep him.
We just need Postecoglou to teach him how to cross the ball, and I think we've got a good right back. Dean, Ivan Perisic, of course, spent 1 year at Tottenham, 34 years old, free transfer from Inter Milan last summer, 34 Premier League appearances, 1 goal, 29 shots this season, 196 crosses, 8 Premier League assists. What have you made of him? Would you like to keep him?
I find this one really difficult. I was so excited when we signed him. I thought it was just a brilliant signing, and it was a proper Conte signing. And the assists, obviously, there were a couple of flick-ons at the front post there from some corner routines and stuff, which went down as assists. But he didn't do enough for me going forward. I think he stifled Son a little bit as well. I don't think they got on particularly well. I don't mean personally. I mean in the positions that they take up on the field and where they receive the ball. And they probably got in each other's way a little bit. I've just been a bit underwhelmed and very disappointed with him. And to be honest, it looked at times that we were better going forward when Ben Davies came back on than when Perisic was on, and that's a bit of a damning indictment. So I'm not quite sure what his contract situation is, if I'm being honest. But yeah, either sell or contract up if that's what it needs to be. He'll have some suitors in Europe. I'm sure who'll take him, and I'm sure he's on very healthy wages as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dean. I expected so much more from Perisic as well. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I'm like you guys. I expected a lot more, especially in the final third. He's sort of been underwhelming in that regard. And look, well, you got to look. What is he going to offer to Ange Postecoglou's system? He can't play left back. We're not going to be playing wing backs. So the only other option is left wing. That's Sonny's position. He ain't going to get in ahead of him. So unless he wants to stay around a backup, but even as a backup, he's on 170 grand a week. That's way too much to be carrying him around just for a backup or just to keep him around for his experience. I've no doubt Ange Postecoglou would like to lean on the experience, but realistically, he doesn't have the energy in or out of possession that we need for Ange's system either. So for me, as sad as it is, because I do like the guy, I think we're just going to have to move on. 170 grand a week can go to a top centre-back to come in here.
Yeah. Craig?
Yeah, I must admit, Dave, I tell you, I didn't realise he was on that much. That shocked me. That has really shocked me. I was quite pleased with his signing, actually, when we got him done. I think he was the first one through the door last year. So I was quite pleased with that we was acting early. And, obviously he comes with pedigree and a lot of experience. And look, his crossing is very good. But for me, I think, I agree. I don't see where he fits in this system. I think he would go back to Italy. From what I heard, he's quite keen to go back to Inter. So for me, I think we let him go. I think we try and sell him 1 year. I think he signed a 2-year deal, so 1 year left. I think we try and sell him and get a bit of money back and get those wages off the book.
Next up is Eric Dier. Of course, he scored in Pochettino's first league game in charge back in 2014. He spent 9 seasons at the club, 270 Premier League appearances, 12 goals, errors leading to goals, 7, and we've only kept 86 clean sheets with him in the team. I'm going to start this one. I would rip up his contract. I think that we have had so many bad times with Eric Dier in the team. Dean?
Yeah, I love Eric Dier.
Tell me what people love about Eric Dier.
No, I know. Do you know what? It's one of these ones that I see it, right? I see it. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you. Too many mistakes, high profile errors, and apart from the long rangey passing, the Alderweireld style diagonal ball, the rest of it, the passing is terrible. But I just what I can't work out is that we've had these brilliant, formerly brilliant European bosses who profess to know what they're talking about. And straight away, Eric Dier was number one. Straight away, Eric Dier was the man on the field, the manager's lieutenant, the guy passing the messages across. He has got to be the best trainer and the best dressing room man that we've ever seen. And that counts for a lot. Don't get me wrong, that counts for a lot. And I actually think that if it had continued to go in the right direction under Conte, we'd have seen more and more of how good Dier could be. And that can only be in a back three, though, I'm afraid. And he could only be the spare man in the back three. And, let's not forget, before the World Cup, the first 2 or 3 months of this season, alongside Højbjerg and Kane, I think probably Dier was up there in the reckoning for Player of the Month and Player of the Season so far at that stage. But then the wheels come off. And when the wheels come off with Eric Dier, they come off properly. It's time. Along with Lloris, we've spoken about, along with Sanchez, along with, some of the other players have been there for too long. It needs a refresh. And as much as I really like him, it's time. It's time to go.
I said this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Every single time I think of a goal going in or a bad moment in the Tottenham Hotspur defence, Eric Dier always seems to be there. It's him I always picture when it's all going wrong. Dave, what about you?
I think he's absolutely atrocious, if you want me to be brutally honest. I think he's atrocious on the ball, and I think he's atrocious off the ball defensively. He's absolutely error-prone. He has lapses in concentration. He has no composure whatsoever. And for me, just makes everyone else around him jittery. And he's a massive part of what we've seen, our worst defence, especially in the Premier League era. With what Dean is saying, Dier's a guy, he done well initially under Conte, wheels fell off. It was the same under Jose Mourinho. It was the same under Pochettino for a time. And that there tells me this is a guy who cannot keep up with the demands of the professional game at the top level week in, week out. He can only do it for so long, and then he just can't handle it anymore, and everything just departs from him. His game, his brain, absolutely everything. The guy's also on 85 grand a week, by the way, which is absolutely appalling. It is shocking that he is that much.
Can I ask, what would you say if suddenly a couple of weeks' time, because it has been rumoured a lot, what would you say in a couple of weeks' time the club give Eric Dier a new contract?
Well, expect to see the exact same thing when he plays. Expect him to see us cost games, and ultimately when he costs us games, and even if it is as a backup role, if he comes in, the momentum that we've built up before that is ultimately going to crumble, and the exact same things are going to keep happening. We also have to remember this guy's a huge say in and around this dressing room, huge say in and around the club for how long he's been here. He's part of that leadership group. How is someone like Eric Dier, with the performances he puts in on the pitch, allowed to even be anywhere near that leadership group? And that there is a massive part of why we've seen what we've seen over the last 4 years at this football club, because the leaders in this team are the ones that make the most errors. New guys coming in don't listen to them. They have no respect for them whatsoever. And it's a huge problem. And that causes a massive split in the dressing room. And if I was a player, and I see this guy, constantly calling for help, constantly blaming other people for his errors and his mistakes, I'd have no respect for him either. For me, he's 85 grand a week that we could be giving again to another top professional. He offers absolutely nothing to this club. I do not understand why people love him. And for me, he's had his chance. He's had his chance in centre midfield. He's had his chance at centre back. And he's also had his chance to carry this club from the Pochettino era, from the Toby and Jan era into a new era, and has completely failed. He's had his time, no room for sentiment. We want a new era at Tottenham Hotspur. We don't want to lose anymore. Ship him out and let's move on.
Craig, I'll ask you simply, the top 6 clubs in the Premier League, what teams would Eric Dier get into?
Probably none of them, sadly. And I knew Derek Dier was coming around. It's difficult for me because I sometimes act with my heart and not my head. And obviously, I remember the good time. Eric Dier was kind of one of that group under Poch. He's that team that we loved. He's still part of that. And it's so difficult because I was gutted when Dele left. It felt like something was being ripped apart that we all loved. And Eric Dier is not as much as Dele, but Eric Dier is still in that category. Having said that, I think it is time for him to move on for all the reasons that everyone said. He has made a lot of errors. But do you know what? I don't think he will move on. I think Dean's right. I think he must be a massive character in that dressing room, a leader. He speaks 3 or 4 different languages. I think he's a good communicator. And I think that's what the other managers that have managed him like about him. And I think as well, don't forget, he's one of Harry Kane's best mates. So if Harry Kane gets to say, and Harry Kane rates Eric Dier, that will go a long way too. So for me, I think it's time for him to move on and we should try and sell him. But I don't think he will be gone. I think you'll see him, and don't be surprised if he does get offered a new deal.
I think Craig's absolutely spot on with the, you're both spot on with the assessments there, and I think that I hope he doesn't get offered a new contract. And as I say, if it was me, I would be moving him on. But for all those reasons Craig just said, I think that there's an element there where if we do get the recruitment right and we bring in 2 quality centre backs, then you can't get rid of everybody else. And so if you're giving me the choice between Longley, who I think has been a massive disappointment, Davinson Sánchez and Eric Dier, then I think that Eric Dier, for his dressing room, abilities, and then the 100%. Fact that he's not going to kick up a fuss, if he's, as we say, he's part of that great era and stuff, and he can be an okay substitute. You're allowed to have okay substitutes, and but as I say, I think he will stay. I would sell him, but I think he will stay.
When you say, Dean, we're okay to have okay subs, what are we aiming for? If we've only got okay subs, what are we aiming for as a football club?
I completely take that point, but this year we aren't in Europe, and we are looking at a 38 game league season and hopefully more than 2 cup games, but potentially you could only play 40 to 44 games in a season, and hopefully we get a Toby and Jan situation again, where you have 2 centre backs who play virtually every game, and they're good enough to say they're rock solid, and there they are. I think if you look at the Man United scenario where they brought in 2 new centre backs, and then you need one to dip in and out, and that's the reason Harry Maguire's not getting time, and England are worried about it because they've had this solid base that's been there. And look, you're allowed 7, 9 subs depending on the competition. And, you know, we're at a point where we've got to refresh. And I just think that might be one too many. I'm not saying for me, don't get me wrong. As I say, for me, he should go. I just think that he's down the priority list for the club of who will go.
Craig, can I just come back to you? When you said about try and sell Eric Dier, and I think you said this about a couple of other players as well, is this not the point? Should Spurs be really bold and ruthless and just say, look, a couple of these players need to leave this summer. The contracts need to be ripped up because we're never going to sell these players. Because realistically, some of these players, who wants to buy them?
No, I totally get what you're saying, but we know how Spurs and Daniel Levy work. That's why they'll only rip up a contract as a last resort. You know, Daniel Levy would rather sell somebody for £1 than rip up a contract. And I get that. But Eric Dier, for me, he's. I think he will. Somebody will buy him. Somebody will want him. You might even find, like, I'll come back to a Luton, somebody like that, lower down in the Premiership club, or even Championship. I mean, possibly is he going to go down that far? He's still, what is he, 30, 31? I don't know. I think there'll be suitors for him. If we put him on the market, somebody would buy Eric Dier. I guarantee it.
I think we have to be careful with that, though, because we should have learned our lesson last year with the likes of Winks and Ndombele and Lo Celso, people like that. They all said that there'd be suitors for them guys in the market, and there just wasn't. And all you're seeing is teams that are willing to maybe gamble on them on a loan, but they're not willing to actually sanction the money and the wages. And for me, you're not really, you know, going into a new era if you're going to keep some of these guys around who for a long time has cost us. You look a lot across all of our cup exits, a lot of them have been away from home, even the embarrassing results in Europe. And he's been in that back line along with Sanchez, along with Davies. And even if we want to progress in cup competitions where you do have to make some changes, he'll be in there and he'll cost you. For me, we paid $5 million for the guy. And we've got as much juice out of the squeeze as you can possibly get. There's no resale value there. His contract is up in 2024, like Sanchez. Just get rid of the guy.
I just can't see Spurs ripping up the contract, Dave. That's the thing. I'm trying to look at it like thinking what the club would do. What I would do is is irrelevant. I just can't see the club ripping up the contracts of 4 or 5 or 6 players. They're just not going to do it. You know, as much as we might want them to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple of European clubs who do look at Dier though as well. As we said, we talked about his languages and whatever else, and again, a lot of European managers, Conte and Jose for a start had him straight back in their 11s, you know. So yeah, I wouldn't be totally surprised. But again, he's one for me that I think you could just let the contract run down for a year and still have a player there if you needed him. Hopefully you don't, but. You know, I think that's the way the club will look at it.
I just think we need to transform that back line this summer. And if we want to move forward as a football club, the likes of Davinson Sánchez and Eric Dier should not be at the club next season. That's what I hope personally. Dean, Arnold Danjuma, of course, it looks heavily likely. It's not been confirmed by Spurs yet that he's gone back. But he only made 9 Premier League appearances this season, scoring 1 goal, 2 appearances in the FA Cup, 1 goal, 1 appearance in Europe. Arnold Danjuma, he seemed to have got a pretty raw deal at Tottenham because it looked like he was going to sign for Everton in the January transfer window. Spurs nipped in there, got the man, and didn't really play him.
I felt sorry for him. I thought he did really, really well when he came off the bench, and he looked really lively, and he. Was it the game at Preston where he looked quite transformative and he actually gave Son a bit more energy around him and a bit more pace around him as well, which was good because I think it was Son who scored the goals up there, wasn't it, as well? And it was just he never got a fair crack, did he? But again, we've got a lot of players in those sort of positions, and is he ahead of a Kulusevski or a Richarlison or a Son or a Kane? Absolutely not. So for me, I think his race is run.
I'm going to try and speed up with some of these players now because we're going to be here all night otherwise. Dave, let's come to you on Christian Romero, 25 years old, World Cup winner, who spent 2 seasons with us now, 49 Premier League appearances, 1 goal. Surely we have to base the back line around him. So surely it's a keep.
Yeah, it has to be built around him. And, he's a player that will fit into Ange Postecoglou's team. Absolutely brilliant. Good on the ball, good passing range, not afraid to step up, clatter into people, proactive about defending. He's everything that Ange Postecoglou could wish for. And for me, our best defender by a country mile, and you build around him. You keep him all day long.
Craig, do you agree on Romero?
I totally agree on Romero. I think he's one of the ones we've got to keep. You're seeing glimpses of the erraticism, that is even the word, that he can show. You've seen him look like the best defender in the world. So I think he's still learning the game. When he's almost riding that line, he's on that line, on the cusp. That's where you want him all the time. It's almost when he knows he's on 4 yellow cards, and if he gets another one, he's going to get banned. That's where you want him, because he seems to control himself a lot better. So for me, keep Romero. And as regards Danjuma, I think, it was sad that he didn't get much more game time. But for me, I don't think we take up the option to sign him.
Dean, Ryan Sessegnon, he's spent now 3 seasons at the club. In his first season, only 6 Premier League appearances. Second season, 15. And his third season, 17. He's only scored 2 Premier League goals for us and 1 goal in the Champions League. Hasn't quite lived up to the expectation. Would you keep him, sell him, or loan him, or rip up the contract?
Was never good enough. Is never going to be good enough. If we can get money for him, great. Maybe Fulham will take him back. He's had a lot of chances. We saw glimpses when it seemed early season that Perisic was pushing him quite hard, and we saw him get into some attacking positions. To me, he looks frightened. He doesn't take a game by the scruff of the neck. He's not going to be good enough. So if you can get money for him, great. If not, then he's one of this rip-up contract. If we were given the free reign of Levy, go.
Dave, do you think Ange Postecoglou can get the best out of Ryan Sessegnon, or is his time up?
No, I think he's time up. I think he's regressed from the player that we bought. He's regressed from the player that we've seen at 17 years of age as well. He can't defend. He can't cross a ball going forward. For me, I don't see any use. And actually, strangely, he's one of the ones where the club have actually done everything to get the most out of him. They've tried him left wing back, and sent him out on loan. And he just hasn't improved. He's regressing. For me, I think he's one that you might sell, because no one's seen enough of him to know that he's damaged goods, unlike Dier and others.
Craig, let's come to you. Fraser Forster. He's played 20 matches in all competitions for Spurs this season. I think 20 more than he thought he was going to play this season, with, of course, the injury of Hugo Lloris. What have you made of Fraser Forster? Would you like to keep him, sell him, loan him, or rip up the contract?
Yeah, oddly enough, as we said on here before, Fraser Forster for me was probably the signing of the window last summer, it turns out. So that tells you a lot, doesn't it? But for me, I think you keep Forster. I think he's a good goalkeeper. He's happy at this stage in his career to be the deputy goalkeeper. I think they are hard to find, of being a decent standard. We've been through the Gazzanigas and the Gallinis, and for me, we've got to keep him. We've got to keep him because he's happy to do the role. He can come in the cups, and from the back end of this season when Hugo was injured that he's going to do a decent job. He's going to do a decent enough job, and some would say actually better than Lloris. So, for me, keep.
Dean Kulusevski spent 2 seasons with us now, 7 Premier League goals in 48 Premier League appearances. Rumours are going around that Spurs now want a discount from Juventus. Have you got any information about this deal? And would you like to keep him? Would you like Spurs to sign him on a permanent basis, or he goes back?
Just on the deal, it'll get done. As far as we're aware, it'll get done. It's obviously Spurs will try at the end. So they know the player wants to stay. He's very happy. He's very happy with his move. So if there's any negotiating to be done, it's worth a try. But he'll be there next season. I love him. He's one of the players for me that. We talked about Dele Alli earlier and obviously the Kane and Son scenario, but he's one of those who just gets you excited. And, like when he came off the bench in some of those games when he was coming back for injury, and it was like the whole team flicked a switch, like, wow, Kulu's back. And he gets fans on the feet. He's young, he's exciting. I think he can get quicker. I think they need to work on his pace a little bit. I think his turn of pace is good, but he gets caught up sometimes by fullbacks. So there's a bit of work to be done in coaching. I think he's fantastic, and I really hope I think in a Postecoglou formation with sort of inside, right, and left attacking midfield players in some home games, he could play there. I think Brian Mason almost played him as a 10 in some of those games at the end of the season, and he could play there. And we know he can play out wide on the right. I think he's versatile. I think he'll press hard. If the squad was better, you could have him for an hour, as Dave talked about, like Postecoglou likes to do. He could be a half an hour, give a fullback a nightmare, or play for an hour and go for it. I love him. I think he's great, and I think he's one of the players the team has to be shaped around.
Dave, Pedro Porro, another player who is about to play under multiple different managers during his very short time at the football club since he's moved from Sporting. 15 Premier League appearances, 3 goals. What do you make of Pedro Porro? How does he fit into Ange Postecoglou's system? Because, as some of you have already said, Emerson Royal is probably the best right back we have at the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the Paranator delivering UK-wide. I think he's adapted to the Premier League absolutely brilliantly in terms of technical-wise. Great cross on the ball, set-piece taker, skins players, scores goals. I mean, what more do Spurs fans want from a signing in January? I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I get that there's defensive issues there, especially at right back. At the Leicester game, it was extremely highlighted. I think that was his debut. But for me, this is a guy that can also play a right wing. Not a problem. He's good enough to be able to handle the ball higher up the pitch. He's got a good cross. He can score goals. So for me, I think you can definitely use him as a right wing if you need to. And I think, if we have a better backline as well, and players that are playing in confidence and defenders who actually want to defend, I think you'll see people help out Porro a lot more, and I don't think you'll see him get as exposed at right back. So for me, no problem at all with the guy. I'd keep him here. I think he'd fit into Ange's team. No problem at all. He works hard, gets stuck in, runs off the ball, presses people. What more does Ange want?
Craig, Japhet Tanganga. He's only made 27 Premier League appearances during his time at Spurs. Only 4 Premier League appearances this season. Do you think it's time up for Tanganga?
Yeah, he nearly went the other year, didn't he? But couldn't get that deal. I think it was it Roma, some Italian side that was it AC Milan, one of those last Milan. Yeah, his last minute sort of like fell through. But look, Spurs boy came through the academy, but for me, he's tried and he's not going to force his way in. I think I've seen enough that I think he needs to move on. Japhet, wish him all the best, but I think it's time for him to just move on. I think somebody out there will buy him. I think we can get some money for him. So for me, sell.
Yeah, it's the same question I asked earlier. 4 Premier League appearances all season. A player can't be happy with that amount of game time. No. Dean, I know it's been confirmed that Lucas Moura is going, but I just thought that we ought to just discuss Lucas Moura. Of course, the best moment of his Spurs career will always be the Ajax moment. Where were you? Who were you with when you watched that game?
I was with my boys, and I thanked Moura for one of the best moments. I actually turned down a ticket. I had some family commitments that it was not really a choice. It was a very difficult one, but it wasn't. But so I would have been there. So he gave us that final, and we thank him for it. But unfortunately, I don't remember anything else good. That's just and for me, that's the problem. I thought he was clearly a lovely guy, clearly loads of effort, but he just wasn't good enough, was he really? And it's such a shame because that night of all nights should have been remembered much more fondly, I think.
A good hat-trick at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and the first hat-trick at a new home against Huddersfield also.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's a fair point, yeah.
Dave, let's come to you. Pape Matar, 20 years old, 11 Premier League appearances, 2 in the FA Cup, 1 in Europe, a total of 14 appearances this season. Would he benefit from a loan, do you think?
No, I actually think he'd benefit from staying around at Tottenham. I actually think, again, he's another one that I predict that Ange Postecoglou would absolutely love and get the most out of. He could play anywhere across that tree in the midfield and needs him to. He's got them big, long legs. He'll get around the midfield, no problem at all. And technically, I think he's sound. I don't understand why he hasn't seen more minutes at Tottenham. I think that game away at the San Siro, I thought he was much better than Oliver Skipp. I thought he offered us more than Ollie Skipp. But since then, Skipp has been favoured. I don't know whether that's because he's homegrown or not. But Pape Matar has had to suffer. Now, look, I take it that, the game against, Southampton, he came off the bench. I think he gave away the penalty from the high foot and all. There's still bits there to learn. But for me, I think this is a guy that we need to get into the team, and I think we need to unlock his potential. We brought him here to bring us into the new era of Tottenham Hotspur. So let's give him the opportunity.
Craig, probably a silly question here. Rodrigo Bentancur, probably one of our best players last season until his injury. And it's expected that he will miss, the first few months of the season, certainly. 2 seasons with us at the moment, 35 Premier League appearances, 5 goals. All 5 goals came this season. We've really missed him, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Absolutely. Brilliant footballer, and 100% you got to keep him. For me, looks like it will be November, December. We heard that he's going to come back. This is a funny injury, as I've said on here. I've had that injury to both knees. Obviously not the standard at all that professional footballers are, and they get a lot more care and attention. But it's a funny injury. It takes a while. I don't care who you are. It takes a while for you to get your confidence back in the knee. And some players never quite get back to the standard they're at because it affects everything, affects your balance, everything. So don't expect him to come back and be 100%, even if it's November. He won't be right again till probably January, February time. So, but 100% for me, you got to keep him.
If he comes back 70% of the player he was before, he's still our best midfield player.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, isn't it? That is, you're spot on what you said there, and I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. It just goes to show what great signings they were in that January transfer window, which, of course, helped us get into the top 4, Kulusevski and Bentancur. Dean, next up, Ben Davies, 30 years old, joined us back in July 2014 from Swansea, 9 seasons with us, 208 Premier League appearances, 6 goals. Ben Davies, would you like to keep him, sell him, loan him, or rip up his contract?
It all depends if we sign a left back. If we sign a top quality left back to play in a back 4 for Ange, then you can sell him or do whatever. I think Ben Davies has been a fantastic servant. He's one player you never can question, absolutely 100%. He adjusted well to play either left centre back or left wing back. There was a couple of errors in there. Was there one against Man City that wasn't particularly good, and a couple of others, but you never looked at Ben Davies and never thought he was letting you down, and he adapted through it. Look, if we're talking top 4 ambitions and trophy ambitions, then it's another one where Ben Davies is sort of on the fringes of it. But again, you see it with Wales. You've seen it with Spurs, where he can step up and do the job that's required when it's required. And that might sound harsh, and we say about players sitting on benches, but I'd keep him around until we know we've got left full-backs and left centre-backs who are better than him.
Dave, I think your face says it all. Would you prefer to sell him? Because I'll be honest, I think that Ben Davies over the years has received a lot of unfair criticism.
Look, I would sell him. And the reason why is I actually struggle to see where he's going to fit in the Ange Postecoglou team. We can say left back, but the reality is the reason why he's been playing left-sided centre back, and it was Jose Mourinho who actually moved him inside first against Antwerp that time in the Europa League, is because he kept on getting roasted at left back. With how fast and tricky the wingers are nowadays, he just cannot keep up. You've seen there the last few games of the season, he got exposed time and time again down that side. Aston Villa, Brentford, he just could not keep up. So left back, I don't think he's good enough anymore. But also, we're not playing for at the back, and I don't think he's good enough to play left centre back over 2 either. I think playing him in the 3 system really suits him. But as a back 4 and in a 2, I don't think he's good enough. So for me, I actually struggle to see where someone like Ben Davies is going to fit in. However, I think he's contracted till he's 33. He's got 3 years left of his contract. But he's on colossal wages again. He's on 80, 90 grand a week again. And for me, I don't think we should be playing players that much for a bit part role, for a backup role. It's too much. And if we do really want to see a new hungry era at Tottenham Hotspur, You have to start replacing these guys and getting younger guys who are more hungrier, who want to chase down, the players in front of them rather than just accept that role. And for me, Ben Davies has been one that has just accepted that backup role. And for me, it reflects in his performances when he comes on. I don't think he's good enough on the football as well. I'm not going to sit here and question his heart, his desire and stuff. He puts his body on the line. But on the ball, he's not good enough. And I just fail to understand where he's actually going to fit in on this new era at Tottenham. And the wages alone, I think we should ship him on.
As a whole, Dave, I'm not singling out any players here. When they go into the Tottenham Hotspur training ground, Hotspur Way, the training facilities, as everyone says, are world-class. You go into that world-class stadium. Now, when I've read out some of the stats of some of these players playing so little games, especially this season, is it hard to offload players because they're happy? And you've mentioned the wages, the great wages that some of these players are on. Is it the case now that some of these players are more, well, I'm playing at a great stadium, I'm playing at a good football club, I'm playing, training at a great training ground, I'm earning good money. What do I want to leave for?
That's exactly it. They're comfortable. They want to hang on to what they've got at Tottenham. They want to hang on to the prestige of being at a top 4 club. They also know with the training facilities, if they go elsewhere, they ain't going to get that elsewhere. But also, you look at their wages; you're probably having them, if not taking more than half off them as well. So that means their lifestyle takes a hit. And with the performances, with the amount of managers that have come and gone, these players have had a massive say in it. Even Ben Davies under Nuno, he was told he wasn't good enough. He wasn't in the first team plan, so he went to Daniel Levy to get him sacked, rather than sitting down and reassessing and doing his best to get into the team and doing what the manager wants him to do to get into the team. And we've seen this too many times with a lot of these individuals, Dier, Sanchez, they're all the same. But the reason why they do it is because they know they're not good enough to be here, and they're trying to hang on to the lifestyle that Tottenham Hotspur provides them, because they will not get it anywhere else. And you see it reflected on performances in the pitch. With how passive they are, how much they, one thing I can't forgive is the lack of work rate from a lot of these guys over the last few years. Even in cup games when they've stepped in, there's a dramatic drop-off in terms of performances, willingness, eagerness, just to run about, and it's not there. These guys are way too comfortable, and they need to be shipped on, and we need to get young, hungry players who do want to be here and who do push the first-team players. Because right now, you've also got first-team players who know that no one's going to be pushing them for their place. So that allows them to become comfortable. And it all has a knock-on effect. And for me, if you want to get rid of that problem, you've got to get rid of the whole lot of them.
Well, Clement Lenglet is up next. Craig, let's come to you. Many reports that I've seen in the past couple of weeks, some reports are stating that Spurs could get a deal done for as low as £6 million. Some have stated up to £19 million. Now, reports have been going around the last couple of months that Tottenham wanted to sign Clement Lenglet on a permanent deal. Is this going to count as a club signing? Because surely Ange Postecoglou has not said, we want to sign Clement Lenglet, get this deal done. This has been in the pipeline for some time.
Yeah, and for me, we shouldn't even be going anywhere near him. I think we should let him go back to Barcelona. For me, there's nothing between him and Ben Davies. And if it's a straight choice between Ben Davies and Lenglet, Ben Davies every single day of the week. I think he's going to be more popular around the squad again. He's more of a, what we were talking about, Eric Dier being popular around the team, one of the leaders, like a Højbjerg type. Very smart lad. I believe that he can act as role models and mentors to the young players. I think you keep him, and certainly as a squad player, because as Dean said, we can't get rid of everyone. He needs to build a squad. We need the squad. Ben Davies is not going to let you down. And for me, if it's a choice between Lenglet and Davies, what's the point? And look, we've already got rid of Sessegnon and Perisic tonight. We've only got Udogie at right back. I know left back. Sorry, I know we're going to come on to Reguilon, but I can almost guarantee that the majority of us are probably going to send Reguilon on his way. So that means buying a left back. We've got a left back in Ben Davies. I think Udogie is going to be the number one choice. But for me, I think you keep Ben Davies. And Lenglet, like I say, but thank you very much. But back to Barcelona for me.
We've got a couple of players left, and then we will be on to the loan players. This is what I'm really looking forward to. Dean, Yves Bissouma, we paid £30 million from Brighton last summer. And I had to double check this stat because I thought it was wrong, but it is absolutely right. 23 Premier League appearances, 28 appearances in all competitions. It doesn't feel like Yves Bissouma has played 28 games for us this season. What do you make of his season?
Well, very disappointing season on the whole. But I went to Villa away. What was that? Second to last game, wasn't it? And he changed the game. He changed the game completely. And all of a sudden, it looked like we were playing in fourth gear instead of second gear. And he moved the ball forward. He was quick and he intercepted well. And the Villa midfield, which was totally dominant until that point, all of a sudden had a game. For me, if we're going to play with this single holder, then he can do that. And in games against the likes of City and United and Arsenal and Liverpool, and you want to play an extra body, if you like, an extra strong man in there, you could play, if you keep Højbjerg, you could play both of them. Or Bentancur's back, you can play both of them. He's a quality footballer. We haven't seen the best of him yet. He will be a top-class player for Spurs, I think. And for me, he's in amongst only half a dozen who are absolutely 100% key.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was very, very excited when we signed Bissouma because he was unbelievable for Brighton and was consistently for a number of seasons. Dave, let's come to you on the two goalkeepers, Alfie Whiteman and Brandon Austin. They're both 24. Brandon Austin is yet to make a competitive appearance for Spurs. Alfie Whiteman has made one appearance for the club back in the 2020-2021 season under Jose in Europe. Would you keep them, sell them, loan, or rip up their contracts?
Nah, for me, I'd rip up their contracts. I think Alfie Whiteman, one of his loan moves was out to Sweden. Brandon Austin's, he was out at, MLS or something like that.
Orlando.
Age. Don't really see them getting much better. Don't ever see them getting a number one spot at Tottenham. And when you're signing someone like Josh Keeley to come in up and coming behind them, it doesn't look like Tottenham have too many plans for them either. So, again, I know it sounds harsh, but I'd rip up the contracts. We can't have too many players hanging around here not doing anything.
We've got a five-a-side team, Dave, now. You're in charge.
Too many, Dave. I'm not sure we've got any left.
No, I'm going to fill it up with some of the loan players. Don't worry.
We're going to play 2-2. We're going to play 2-2-6 under Dave.
Well, this has got to be a ruthless rebuild, you know. Craig, now we've got 11 players left, and these are all the players that spent time away on loan this season from Tottenham Hotspur. Sergio Reguilón, 3 seasons at Spurs, 52 appearances in the Premier League for Tottenham, 2 goals. He's 26 years old. He's spent time this season on loan at Atletico Madrid, 11 league appearances, 0 goals, a total of 12 appearances in all competitions. Sergio Reguilón, can he get back playing for Tottenham Hotspur?
You know what? Not even sentimental, but I like Reggie. When he first came, I really liked him as a player when he was left back. I personally would like I'd like Ange to give him another go just to see what he's all about. I'd like to keep him around for 6 months, and then, you know, there's another transfer window in January. I think he deserves another crack. So yeah, Reguilón, I'll keep an eye on that one. I'm not saying look at me. I feel like I'm a reporter. Yeah, keep an eye on that one. I think Reguilón might stand, of all the lonely players, I think he might stand a chance, actually. So, yeah, wouldn't surprise me if he sticks around.
Were you surprised, though, Craig, at the time? I think he was the one that people were most surprised about, that he didn't get on the plane to South Korea under Conte.
Very, very. As I say, I always thought he was, I mean, obviously he had some bad games. He did drop off a bit, but he came in with Bale, didn't he? And they obviously knew each other. And, you know, it was a big hype around him. Apparently we've been tracking him for a few years, hadn't we? And Daniel Levy had wanted him for a few years. The club had looked at him, and I think he started off reasonably well. It was him and Ben Davies, and he was getting in ahead of Davies. So I just think he's had an injury, hasn't he? When he's been away, he's had a bad injury, so he's probably not been playing that much. So yeah, for me, I think we as if he plays 4 at the back, which he does, him and Udogie, I think that battling out for position, get rid of Perisic and Sessegnon, I think that's not bad. Not bad. Give him another look for 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
Dean, Harry Winks, of course, he's had injury problems, spent the season on loan at Sampdoria, 20 league games for them this season. Of course, Harry Winks played in a Champions League final only 4 years ago for Spurs. Do you think that he could ever wear a Spurs shirt again?
Not for me, no. He's another one who, because he came through the youth system and whatever, there was hopes beyond what his ability can provide. He's a bottom half of the Premier League midfield player, and I hope he gets a nice move and can get lots more game time. And his best performance was in an England shirt in Spain, but then we've not seen anything like those levels again. So no, we've got to cut some losses there, and that's one of them. He's just not good enough.
What sort of money do you think that Spurs will demand for someone like Harry Winks if he left on a permanent deal?
I think if someone offered in the region of 10 to 15 million pounds, they'd bite their hands off. I think it's quite a difficult market this summer. There's the big contracts, and the longer contracts are not being offered. So I think there'll be a lot of mid-ranging transfers that players, will move around a little bit, a lot of moving pieces. But I think 15 million quid, and that's good value all round, I think.
Dave, let's come to you. Brian Hill, who of course has just won the Europa League with Sevilla, of course spent time on loan at Valencia during the 21-22 season. He's only played 31 games for Tottenham, still 22. Is there an opportunity for him to play in the Premier League? Because so many people have said that he's lightweight, the Premier League doesn't suit him. Is it best that we cash in? Because remember, we paid a lot of money for him, and of course Eric Lamela went the other way as well.
Yeah, look, for me, the prophet Gil Messi, I like the guy. I think he should have been given the opportunity last season. Bringing in Danjuma on loan to send him out on loan did not make any sense for me whatsoever. We should have kept Gil around. He was making an impact off the bench. He was starting to get into the team like that Palace game, and he was just starting to show what he could do. But he's been unlucky. We've had managers in here that don't play attacking football, that just don't know what to do with him whatsoever. Whereas I think someone like Ange Postecoglou will know what to do with him. And I say to everyone that calls him weak and, he lacks the physicality, go and listen to what Harry Redknapp said about Luka Modric. Harry Redknapp, despite everyone in and around the club and everyone telling him you cannot play the guy in the middle because he's physically not able, well, he put him in the middle and he never turned back since, and the guy went on to win a Ballon d'Or. Sometimes your first touch can just be that good that no one can get near you. Out wide, Gil Messi, it's easy to show him out by the byline and knock him off the ball. You put him inside, in a calm position, he can move left, he can move right, and he's going to create absolute havoc. He'll pick you up a hell of a lot of free kicks. And for me, I think he just needs a manager that wants to believe in him. And if Gil wants to stay, you keep him around. I did see a nice picture of him on the exercise bike earlier. So I wonder, has he got the call from Ange Postecoglou, get ready, boy? Or, is he a guy that maybe, Sevilla are going to take up and bring him back? Who knows? But for me, I think we're missing a trick if we do not move this guy inside into a can and see what he's all about.
He's a good presser as well. He's a very good presser. He's a relentless presser. Goes at fullbacks and closes them down.
I've got to say as well, Dean, when I was in South Korea last season with that very intense training session, Brian Hill was one of the best trainers.
He was still going, wasn't he? He was still going at the end. Yeah.
And also Davinson Sánchez, but that doesn't go for a lot. But Brian Hill, definitely unbelievable. Craig, Giovanni Lo Celso, a player with so much promise. I've never really rated him, if I'm completely honest. 3 seasons at Spurs. 2 loan spells at Villarreal. Giovanni Lo Celso, do you think that Ange Postecoglou will fancy him to come back into this Tottenham Hotspur squad?
Yeah, what I'm amazed at what I have heard, he's one of the players that he thinks he will actually have a look at. And for me, I agree with you. I've never really rated Gio Lo Celso. So for me, I think you've just got to sell him, cut your losses and sell him. From what you hear, he was a little bit of a troublemaker. He wasn't getting in the team, so I think that's why. Was it Mourinho sent him out on loan? Can't really remember now. Just get rid. I don't think we need him. I don't think he's a fantastic player. I think there's more where he came from. So for me, sell him.
I think he's an interesting one though in a Postecoglou formation. And I've got this nagging thing that if Unai Emery wants him at Aston Villa, that he's going to be quite good up there.
Yeah, definitely. Dean, I've got to come to you on this one. due to your personal message to me the other day. Tanguy Ndombele, I don't know how long we're going to be on this one. Tanguy Ndombele, of course, our record signing, 63 Premier League appearances for us, 6 goals, 91 appearances in total, 10 goals in all competitions, 26 years old. He's just won the Serie A title with Napoli. Do you think that Postecoglou can bring Tanguy Ndombele in and get the best out of him that some managers haven't been able to do at Tottenham?
Well, the one big question for me in all of that is not about ability. Is can Ange Postecoglou get Ndombele to run? Because let's be honest, some of those games at the beginning, he was downright disrespectful to those of us sat in the stands. All of us saw that video of him not tracking back and not coming. I was actually sat about 8 rows back there on that day, and I was screaming at him. You know, and it's not ability. It's not, you know, as far as ability goes in a Tottenham midfield, he's up there with Bentancur and Dembele and Modric for actual ball skill and ability. But you can't do it unless you run. You can't play in the Premier League unless you run. And if you can get him to run, then we have got a player on our hands. You know, and the guy can turn like half the size of his body. You know, he's a big guy. He's got a big, strong base. And he spins away from players. His passing ability, some of the assists early doors when he first came into that team, we were like, wow, we haven't had a player with this vision for a long time. One thing I have heard is that when Tottenham were very keen to tout him out as far as a loan move went, Postecoglou wanted him at Celtic. You know, so there's a little link there, and can he think maybe he'll be his little project? But you know, again, the formation that he's looking at. If he can come in with training and attitude and actually run, he could fit into that sort of formation. He could fit into that way of playing. I'm not sure he'd have the engine room and the tackling ability to play against the Man City games and the Liverpool games. But how many games have we watched where we sit there and watch some of these players try and unpick a defence and none of them could do it? You know, and Ndombele could be that player. I'd give him a year again, or give him January, till January at least. Let's see what the guy's got on the ball when the team's flying forward and we're knocking passes around and you know, I've only got to take a chance on 1 or 2 of these loan players, and I think he might be one of them.
I'm going to be controversial because I would sell Tanguy Ndombele. What about you, Dave?
I think you'd rip up his contract, to be honest with you. I cannot forgive him for what he done against Morecambe. I'm sorry, I can't. You know, you're losing to Morecambe, and then the crowd start booing him, and then he walks even slower. That is taking the piss. That's not respecting the badge or the club or the fans that spend good money to come and pay to watch this guy. On that basis alone, I think his contract should be ripped up. But you know, in an Ange Postecoglou system, I fail to see how he's going to work. The guy's not going to run. The work ethic is not there. Hard work beats talent every single day of the week. And with Ange Postecoglou, if he wants any chance of surviving at Tottenham and the likes of Kane, Son and others to buy into his message, he cannot allow his message to be skewed just for someone like Ndombele. He has to commit to the principles of hard work in and out of possession. If he makes allowances for Ndombele, he ain't going to succeed at Tottenham Hotspur. So he has to stick to that. And for me, what message as well would that be by Tottenham Hotspur to rip up his $200,000 a week contract? You know, it'd send out a message to anyone thinking about coming here and taking the piss. Don't. And it'll send out a message to everyone else around the club who are on a lot less wages than him. If they're going to do it to him, they'll do it to me, so I better up my game. So for me, I think, you know, it benefits more by ripping up his contract and sending out a statement that way, rather than even try and cash in and regain anything. For me, you know, we didn't do our homework in the first place. He's always had a long-term history of fitness issues. If, you know, I'm surprised the scouts didn't find that out, because you could have just found it on Google anyway. We got sold a dud. It's time to move on.
Dave, do you sell paper shredders? You're tearing up so many contracts. I wonder what's there.
But you know what? For Tottenham Hotspur to succeed, this has to happen. So many players have come and gone, and not improved the situation. But also the reason why it hasn't been improved is because you got a lot of guys hanging around here that are part of the leadership group, that anytime it looks like they're next out the door, the manager gets sacked, or this happens, or that happens, and they throw the manager under the bus. So if we want to improve Tottenham Hotspur and get us going in the right way and a chance of winning trophies, we have to undertake this rebuild. It's going to be painful. It's going to be harsh, but it has to happen, because I can no longer watch losing football. And I certainly can't watch a team that doesn't even embody the era that's in, which is working class. The minimum should be hard work.
It is crazy, though, isn't it? For a team that is quite often criticised about not spending money, £100 million between Lo Celso and Tanguy Ndombele. And of course, both of them have spent time out on loan this season. And Ndombele winning a trophy, which I think is madness as well. A lot of these players seem to go out on loan or leave Tottenham on a permanent basis, and they always seem to win silverware. Craig, let's come to you. Jed Spence, club signing, as Antonio Conte said on a number of occasions, £20 million, 8 league appearances for Rennes, 10 in all competitions this season for the French side. Jed Spence, is there a way in to the Tottenham Hotspur starting 11 for Jed Spence under Postecoglou?
Can I just comment on Tanguy very quickly, Chris? I know we're approaching the 2-hour mark, but Tanguy Ndombele reminds me of those of you that have seen Mike Bassett, England manager, Lonnie Urquhart, when he said about somebody in the team has all the turning power or pulling power of a Renault Spas. That's a bit like Tanguy Ndombele, and it's like, he doesn't really be bothered. He knows he's good, but he can't really be asked to do it. But what I'd love to see, Tanguy, I was massively excited when we signed it, because you could see there's a player in there. And so manager after manager has tried. But what I would say, he came under Poch, didn't really get that much time to work with Poch. And then he had 2 pragmatic managers. I don't even think Nuno had a look at him, did he? So we don't talk about Nuno on this channel. Sorry, Chris, I forgot that. So Conte and Mourinho, he just wasn't ever going to fit into their system. I think Ange could fit into that system. So I'm with Dean on this. I'd like to see Tanguy given another 6 months, and then we ship him out, rip up his contract, or give it to Dave Schroeder personally. If after January Ange can't do anything with it, get rid. Do what you want to do with him. But personally, I'd give him one more go. And I was at that Morecambe game, and I was extremely annoyed. I'm not going to swear the way he was trotting off that pitch very slowly. I think Brian Gill actually ran past him to get off the pitch, from what I remember. So look, give the guy another chance, but that's just my opinion. Coming on to Jed Spence, 100% keep. I was excited when we signed Jed Spence. I think he was one of my favourite signings of the summer. He was the one I was always checking my phone to see have we got that one over the line. I think, again, he could play further up the pitch, a bit like Porro. I think he could play further up. I don't think you necessarily see him as a right back. I think he's so good attacking wise. He was in the box quite a lot when he was on the pitch for a few minutes this season, earlier in the season. So for me, I think Jed's got a bit of work to do, but I think Ange will like him, and I think he should be given a chance again. Keep.
I think Spurs fans expected far too much of Jed Spence far too early. He became this sort of stick to beat the club with, because he wasn't playing. We didn't forget he didn't play. He only played Championship football before, and not everyone does what Dele Alli did and come charging into a team from like that, and especially a team that's already playing European football. Jed as the backup right back to Emerson Royal, with the potential that Porro could play up there as well. I think that Jed Spence could learn an enormous amount from that. And I think by the end of the year, we'll be talking about Emerson Royal as the backup to Jed Spence.
Dean, next up is Joe Rodon. We've signed him for approximately £11 million back in October 2020. 15 Premier League appearances for Spurs in 3 seasons. Of course, spent time at Rennes this season on loan, 16 league appearances for them, 1 goal, a total of 22 in all competitions. Still only 25. Is there a future for Joe Rodon at Tottenham?
No. Nowhere near good enough. Cannot for the life of me figure out why we signed him in the first place, unless it was something to do with the Gareth Bale contract and a Gareth Bale return in there somewhere. But I'd struggle to put him as a Premier League player, let alone a Tottenham Hotspur player. Not good enough. No, whatever money we can get for him. Yeah,
completely agree. Dave, next up is Harvey White, 21-year-old midfielder. 1 Premier League appearance for Spurs, 1 FA Cup, 1 European, so 3 in total in all competitions. Spent time away at Portsmouth on loan in the 2021 season, and away at Derby, 15 league appearances for them. Keep, sell, loan, rip up the contract.
For me, I'll keep him around. This is where I start filling out my squad. Someone like Harvey White, I think, why not give him a chance? He's hung around for long enough. He's been spoken about for quite some time in around this squad. He can also play left back. He's a set piece specialist. And for me, it's about time we started making a pathway for some of these guys, rather than letting them go off and sign off for clubs around Europe and then watching them being sold for 30, 40, 50 million. Let's clear a pathway and give some of them a chance, because surely they can't do any worse than some of what we've already seen, including the money and the wages we've outlaid on some of the guys coming in here. We've spoke about Devine, White, people like that long enough. Now's the new era at Tottenham Hotspur. Let's give them the opportunity and let's start filling out the squad with them. The only way you're going to know if they're good enough is by putting them out there.
Craig, Destiny Udogie, of course, we've signed him from Udinese. He spent time on loan there, 33 league appearances this season, 3 goals, 20 years old, Italian under-21 international. How excited are you to see him?
Very, very much so. All good reports coming out of Italy. I've watched a couple of the games, not tons, to be honest, but I'm more interested in what people have said about him in the reports from Italy. And he's been one of the top defenders in Italy this year. So very excited to what he could bring. I was actually did a bit of research on him when we signed him last year, and I thought, God, we could have done with him last season. But I'll tell you what, he's stayed. Hopefully, he's learned English, so he can communicate with the squad and the manager. And I'm really excited to see what he can bring. Yeah, really excited.
Dean, lastly, 2 young strikers. Troy Parrott, 21 years old, spent time on loan at Preston this season. 3 league goals in 29 appearances, and David Scarlett for Portsmouth, 4 league goals in 31 league appearances. Do you think that either one of these or both of these players could make any Spurs appearances next season?
I don't think Parrott. I think that he had a lot of chances at Preston, and he's physically was more ready for that lower level as well, for the different type of game. And if he was going to really make an impact, then he would have done. But he didn't. So no, I don't think we'll see him in a Tottenham shirt. Scarlett, I mean, a couple of the people that I talked to could not speak highly enough about the kid and his attitude and his training and his finishing. And I think that Pompey, I think, would freely admit that they didn't get the best out of him, but the way that they started the season playing in a particular way, and he scored quite a few goals at the beginning, and it was like, oh, this kid's going to set the league on fire. But it didn't quite go his way. A couple of niggly injuries in there, but I think there's something there with him. I'd like to see him be the one come off the bench, for those 5-10 minutes. Hopefully, when we're winning games, instead of someone like Danjuma, who we talked about earlier, who we're investing money in for not much time. I think it's better to do it the other way around with the Scarlet.
Well, we've gone through the whole squad, even all of the players that are coming back from loan spells. Last question for you all, the same question to everybody. What are you expecting in terms of incomings for this rebuild for Ange Postecoglou? Dean, let's start with you.
What am I expecting? I'm expecting a very, very busy period where there are lots of ins and outs. And I'm also expecting a typical Daniel Levy last week of the window where we're left waiting on quite a few. What I'd like is Raya, Laporte or Maguire, James Maddison and another attacker.
Maguire, really?
Yeah. It'd fit in well, be fine.
Dave, do you agree?
Look, I would have took Maguire on loan back in January for sure with some of the stuff we were watching. I think he's better than some of the stuff we were watching. Would I pay for him permanently right now? No. What I expect though is a complete overhaul of that back line, new goalkeeper, maybe a Cam brought in here. And for me, let's just kick on and go and show the rest of the league how good we are when we play attacking football. I'm absolutely sick to death of what I've seen over the last few years. And if we don't act in this window, and we don't, I know people may say, look, Dave, you come across as ruthless, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, the guys that I want gone, they're not going to progress Tottenham Hotspur. They've all had their opportunities. And it just shows how much money we've actually wasted. And that spending money at Tottenham is not the issue. It's the research into the players we're bringing in here, which is the issue. Also, the chopping and changing of managers and direction. So for me, let's just get rid of the players we need to get out, get in the players we need to get in, and a nice, efficient manager. And let's give time Ange to cook. Let's see what he can do at Tottenham.
Craig, lastly, what are you expecting?
Well, all I was sitting here thinking was if Dave Harris gets the job as director of football at Tottenham, I hope his shredder's been oiled and had a maintenance check, because he's going to be working overtime. Look, who I expect to get in, all I expect is, or all I hope is, that Ange gets exactly who he wants, regardless of what I think. I could sit and say new goalkeeper, 2 decent centre-backs, creative midfielder. I'd take Maddison, and another forward-thinking player, whether that be a striker or winger, to replace Moura or whatever. Because you've got to remember, we're losing Moura, and if we let Dan Juma go, we've got to find some replacement there. He's going to want some replacement there. And personally, I kind of agree with Dean about Maguire. I wouldn't take him as a first choice, but I would. I've said on here before, and I know people disagree with me, but you've got to remember, and I'll come back to it again, Harry Kane has touted Harry Maguire. So don't be surprised if those links continue. But I'm not saying that I would 100% take him, but I think he's better than what we've got there. Is he what we need to push us forward? No. There's better defenders. But as a squad player, Maguire, I'll take him all day long. But you've got to remember, Harry Kane is mates with Maguire, and he will have recommended him. And if it keeps Harry happy, that's what I'm saying. If it keeps Harry happy, you kind of got to look at it. So don't be surprised. But bottom
happy too.
Sorry, mate.
He'll keep Enfield Golf Course happy too.
He will. And look, if Sanchez goes, he wears number 6. So it's a straight swap, isn't it? So look, I just want to see progression this season. I want to see us finish. I think top 6 is definitely achievable. I know that's not shooting for 4th, but you've got to be realistic. I think if we get back in the Europa League, that's progress. And hopefully we can win a cup as well. And from everything I've heard, he's going to take the cup seriously, because look, we haven't got as many games. He can play. We're going to be playing mainly one game a week, and the odd cup game midweek. So look, FA Cup don't start till January. We haven't got as many games. It would be thoroughly depressing if we only played 40 games this year, because that's what you're looking at if we go out of both cups, first round. So come on, let's trust in Big Ange. Hope he gets what he wants, and see where we are end of transfer window.
Well, let me just say to everybody watching and listening, thanks so much for staying with us for this 2-hour show. I didn't expect it to go on for this long. Craig, Dean and Dave, thanks so much for joining me this evening. Dean, thanks so much for joining us today, and tell everyone where they can find you and your wonderful work.
You don't see my name very often, as I'm sat here scribbling silly headlines most of the time. But so still The Sun in print and online. And we're one thing I always like to say when people ask me about my job is that we're football fans first as well. So I'm in a very privileged position to be able to see stories and then project them out to everyone to read. So, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. And Dave, thanks so much indeed. And tell everyone where they can find your wonderful channel.
Yeah, you can find me over at the Irish Hotspur, greasing my shredder for all the contracts that I'm ripping up. That's where you can find me. Get over there, smash the subscribe button, whether you agree with me or not. I'm just as a passionate Spurs fan as you. So get over there and show me some love and support.
Thank you, Dave. And Craig, thanks so much. Where can people find you?
Yeah, on Twitter at DM9. If you want to give me a follow, that'd be lovely. I think Dave's ripped up your chair, Chris. It looks like you've sunk down. I don't know what's quite happened. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been good fun. It's been really good fun.
Well, Dave, Craig and Dean, thanks so much for your time this evening. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.